Have you ever spiraled before? Here's the thing. We allow worry to create anxiety and procrastination in us, and today we're going to talk about how to reverse that. Hey everybody, welcome back to Logistics Life. In today's episode, I wanted to take a little bit of a detour for you. And the reason I wanted to take this quick detour today was, we've been on this highway, if you will, for the last little while of, talking about what's going to happen in the future, how are things going to happen. And I think what happened last week with CP striking up in Canada specifically, I think it created a few ripples across the country, across North America. But what I've had is more people connect with me last week saying, okay, I have to talk to my customer. It's been so long since I've had to talk about rates. The last time I talked about rates and increasing pricing was during COVID, where it was kind of given that everything was going up. So no matter where they went. Now what I'm seeing is I'm not even going to say a select group of people. I'm going to say for the majority, people are starting to get concerned about what happens when rates do change, right? Am I going to be in this position where customers are going to say, well, I'm going to go find somewhere else, right? And I think this happens quite a bit. I mean, if you've been in the industry, any longer than 10 years, you've seen kind of probably 15, because we've seen two of these major cycles, right? So prior to COVID, we saw the 2008-9 cycle where everything dropped and then rates had to increase. Then we saw the 2018-19 cycle, and then obviously into COVID, and then where we are now. So these things have happened. Now, 2018-19, prices went up everywhere. In this next phase, if you will, in this turn of the market, it's the way we're seeing it anyways. And, if you watch Data Day on Wednesdays, Dean and I talk about it quite a bit, where it's these individual pockets, which things seem to be shifting and moving, right? Whereas normally it would be the market. There's been no significant challenge, industry, occurrence that is shifting markets. It's just impact zones, if you will. So what I started thinking about, what was some of the preparation I did when I'm trying to raise prices? What were some of the worries? What were some of the anxieties that kicked in? And obviously the biggest one, and you've probably all felt it at some point in time, is that allowing the worry to make you spiral. Right. So if I go talk to prospect or customer A, and I need a rate increase, and they're 60% of my business, and oh my God, what if I lose them? And then all of a sudden it flows to, then I won't be able to pay my mortgage, and I'll have to move, and then I'll live in an apartment, and my status will be derailed, and my credibility, my brand, whatever you want to say. Like, we spiral out of control. And this is just something that, I'm studying this more and more, because I've found myself, and maybe sometimes you guys have as well, where you start thinking of something, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, you're on this like thought highway, if you will, leading to absolutely nowhere. And that's part of what a lot of people are experiencing now. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to kind of talk to you about how we allow worry to derail us. I wanted to talk to you about preparation. I also wanted to talk to you about some of the consciousness involved in worry, but mainly how it leads to procrastination, it leads to hesitation, it leads to all sorts of other things that I believe we can literally derail very quickly. And what I mean by that is, to me, there's a few key things. Okay, so number one is preparation. Preparation in preparing yourself, right? But not only that, I think preparation goes a way further in our overall over and over process. So in our overall, I'll call it a pipeline, if you will, or your strategic plan. Like, preparation, I think, sits at the top. And some people might disagree with me, and that's fine. But when I say preparation, I mean, how do you act on a daily basis with your prospects, with your customers, with your team, with your management? And when I say this is preparation for long term, right? So, for example, there's nothing worse in this industry, and you've probably done it. If not, you've had customers, most likely, or prospects, whatever, most likely bring it up. If they haven't, I'll tell you one thing: it's in their head, and this is everything's great until I'm not needed or until you get a bigger customer. Then I get forgotten about. And I think this, and don't get me wrong, everyone, like, it's not easy what we do, right? As an account rep, as an agent, as whatever your individual title is, if you manage accounts, it's not easy, right? You have this account that demands so much time, this account that demands so much time, this account that demands so much time. I've been there, done that, played the game, got the t-shirt 100 times over. And it's difficult, because if an account gives you a load a month, but another account gives you 10 loads a day, there's obviously a hierarchy of who has more needs. But preparation is making sure you stay in contact with all your customers, is making sure you educate your customers on what's going on in the market around them and in the areas they touch. Preparation is asking them the 3 key questions that I always say you should ask. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What can we improve on? Preparation is making sure you're up to date on what their goals are, what their objectives are, and how you contribute to that puzzle. That, to me, is preparation. That, to me, is our ability to stay on top of our prospects. So think of it like this. Let's say, markets in your specific area, right? So more centralized, more groupings of markets are changing. And let's say your prospect or your customer, let's say your customer at this point has no real idea as to what's actually changing in the market. So you've got a couple of things that you're now dealing with, right? You've got the fact that, geographically, it's a pocket. So nationally, they might be looking at a national average and things aren't moving, and now you're moving, right? So you got those two, yin and yangs messing with your head, right? Which can lead to anxiety, which can lead to procrastination, to having the conversation with your customer, right? So if you think about this for a second, because, and I'll lay it straight with you, because this is what I truly believe we as professional logistics sales reps, this is our musts. Like, when I say job, I mean, this is the nucleus of what it is. It's educating everyone around you, including your prospects, about what's happening right in their backyard. I think if you do not do that, of course it leads to anxiety, it leads to procrastination when you have to talk about rate increases, because you have no foundation of what you've taught them about what's going on in and right around their company and how it could impact them. That's number one. Number two is, if you haven't stayed in contact with them, if you haven't created a framework, a flow, a workflow, if you will, to stay in communication with everybody and just, hey, how are you? Here's something that I did. So, like, for example, one thing that I did for years was every Monday was research day. So what I would do is I would come in, I would first do all my reports for everybody that reported to me, and every salesperson I was training. I do my reports, their numbers for the week and all that kind of stuff, because that was part of my Mondays as well, was sitting down with them and saying, here's the good, the bad, the ugly, the needed, maybe the next phase, what's your thoughts? Where are you at? Are you still, is this still the mission? So, but then what I would do is I would research all the areas where my customers were and delivered. And what I mean by that, and now, in today's day and age, we can set up automations to do that immediately. So when we walk in on a Monday morning, all the research is done for us. See, this is the beautiful thing about tech that they didn't have back when I was doing it compared to what we have now. So we have so many new ways to do it. And maybe one day this week, I'll get into some of the tools I use and show you guys how I automate many pieces of my business to help free up my time to do things like this, like talk to you. So for example, so then you come in and you have the research. And then what I would do is I would take that research and I would spread it out to all of my prospects that it was meant to be for. And what I mean by that is I did a big survey, a couple of hundred prospects. And I asked them, I said, if you got up-to-date information on kind of like a weekly basis, would you read it and would it be impactful to you? And they said yes. If it was like directed towards me, it would be very impactful. So I spent, probably 2 hours every Monday morning organizing these things and sending them out to prospects and customers. And the reason I did that is because I knew that preparation was key for anything. Meaning, if capacity's tightening and I just can't find capacity, or I need higher rates from a spot rate perspective, I know Mr. or Mrs. Customer, we have this rate done. It's in our rate matrix. But the problem is capacity's doing this, and this. As I've shared with you over the last couple of weeks, over the last couple of months, kind of gave you some hints that this was happening and brought it up forward. It's actually happening. See, when we go in for price increases, when we go in for these things, if the education is there, it's just a continuation of the conversation. It's when we haven't started that conversation, or we haven't educated our customers, or we're going in blind, or we haven't spoke to our customers in a couple of weeks and we call them up and expect them to get it. This is where that anxiety, that deep-rooted fear, if you will, the worry kicks in. So if you stay in constant communication, if you set up a workflow where you can literally piece this out over a couple of weeks, then when we have these conversations, it's the next logical step in the workflow, or in the conversation, in the conversation line that you're having. This is where, major clients get it. There's another thing to be thinking of here, right? Is if you have one client that is 80% of your business, of course your brain's going to spiral when you think to yourself, oh my gosh, I have to give them a price increase, and it's like, a 6-7% price increase, and you're looking at, again, national averages. You're not zeroing in on the individual market you're in. And you're saying, well, national averages are down and spot rates are down, and this is what's happening. And you're going to generic articles that talk industry specific. Like if you've got rates raising by 10% in one part of North America, and 8 other parts of North America are dropping by 20%, that 10% is not going to be visible on a national average, right? So this is where we have to get deeper into the data in order to back us up. Now, so think of these things for a bit, right? Like, just these are what is the nucleus of worry, anxiety, procrastination, all this kind of stuff when it comes to dealing with our customers, right? Our customers pay our bills, they pay our rent, they pay our mortgage, and all that kind of stuff. But we also help them pay their rent, their mortgage. It's a two-way street. And I know it doesn't feel like that for the majority of time, but the reality is it's a two-way street. All right, so I think I harped on that enough. So there's a couple of key factors here. When we talk about this worry, when we talk about this anxiety, when we talk about all of this, it's understanding, first and foremost, right? How much have you cultivated the relationship with your customers that allow you to have the conversations in a way where it's, like I said earlier, it's the natural chain of the conversation, right? So think of this in the way you prospect, right? When you're prospecting and when you go through your sales cycle, there's a couple of key elements, right? The ones who close the best, it's the next logical step in the sales cycle, right? So think of it like this. You have everything in order. The numbers are there, the volumes are there, the commitment's there, everything's there. The next logical step is closing the deal. It's like I always talk about when it comes to, for me, it's the baseball diamond sales method. First base, second base, third base, the next logical place to go is home for the win, for the customer, for the relationship, for the building of the business. And you can't go from first to third. You're out. You can't go from first to second to home plate. You're out. You have to pass all the bases. And this is the nucleus of a lot of why sales reps get, for lack of a better term, lose the opportunity because they try and skip bases. Now, it might be unconsciously, it might be consciously. The fact is you skip. So there's also a process as a customer of yours that you must consistently follow in order to create conversations that naturally move to the next level. So, for example, in 2018-19, when we knew ELD was coming in, I started the conversation with all of my customers way before ELD kicked in because I wanted to make sure they were educated enough to understand. And I had some customers that did not believe me. I had some customers, full transparency, I had customers I lost because I was saying, this is going to happen. You have to be prepared for it. So they were thinking I was setting them up for an arbitrary or fictitious price increase. And this is going to happen. This is part of business where some people just aren't going to want to believe they're capable of it. And this happened. And I won't mention the company, but this happened. And in the end, 3 weeks probably into when prices started to shift and markets started to holy crap, what's going on? They called me back and they said, you were right. So, but I had to take a stand because I knew what was going to, sorry, I shouldn't say I knew. I figured what was going to happen and it actually happened. I could have been wrong. And that's one thing about future casting that I talk about all the time is when we're preparing prospects for something, right? You look at what happened just recently with the CNCP strike, right? You are reading the reports now where people were like, I didn't think it was going to happen. I thought the government was going to step in at the 11th hour. They didn't step in till after it happened, right? They actually threw a huge curveball when they said, well, rail is not deemed as a essential service, which is absolutely asinine because it is. But because of that, we got thrown into this loop. And it probably created undue stress on a lot of people that they could have fixed it pre-strike, right? So it's having those conversations, right? Like future price increases, it's coming, everyone. It's coming. What are you doing now to prepare your customers for the future?